Thank you all for joining today's edition of The Lawyer's Diary. As we always promise you, The Lawyer's Diary brings us very educative and informative programs which borders on our life each and every week. So today, we are lucky, privileged to have one of our very own lawyers, lawyer Andrew Dodzi. I hope I got the middle name right. Dodzi Adugu. I kind of have a bit of relation with Lawyer Adugu. Lawyer Adugu is my senior at the law faculty, so I've known him for over 10 years. He's currently a state attorney at the Attorney General's Department in the Volta region. He is also the focal person for prosecution of human trafficking cases in the Volta and OT region, and also an alumnus of the International Visitor Leadership Program. And has also represented Ghana in the U.S. Department of State Programs. His areas of interest are criminal law, company law, and commercial law. I think that's where the money is. So that's where our senior also has his hat in there. So senior, we are privileged to have you today, and thank you for accepting the invitation to come on the show. We are grateful.
Thank you very much for having me. A very good evening to all our viewers and all those who are listening to us from various parts of the world. I'm pleased to be with you this evening.
All right, so just a minute. Dennis, have you been able to go live? Because a lot of people usually stream live, those who were not able to join us.
Well, I don't know what the problem is today, but I think the best option we have now is to record, and I'm recording as well.
Right, so once we are recording, we'll put it there at a later point.
Yes.
So
yes,
respectfully, many a times we get to hear a lot of instances where either internally or Ghanaians in diaspora complaining so much about some kind of deceit in trafficking, where they are being trafficked to the outside world to undertake forced labor, sexual slavery, and commercial exploitation. So having you as a focal person is kind of pleasure to all of us, because I'm sure that you'll be able to let us understand the reasoning behind it, the problems surrounding it, and if there are measures being taken in now for the its effect to be minimized. So lawyer, without wasting much time, what at all, when we say human trafficking, what is the concept? What is human trafficking?
Thank you very much. The concept or the crime of human trafficking is an international crime. And in short, human trafficking is modern day slavery. So what do we mean by modern day slavery? Hitherto, a lot of people thought that human trafficking was only between Ghana and across our borders. But that is not really the case. The human trafficking is governed by the Human Trafficking Act 2009. And that law, as I'm saying, it's 2009 because there has been an amendment. So the original act was in 2005, that's Act 694. Then it was amended in 2009 by Act 784. That's the Human Trafficking Amendment Act, 2009, Act 784. So I'm just going to break down what human trafficking is under our laws. Now, for you to be able to establish the offense of human trafficking, or for us to be able to say that there's human trafficking, we first of all need to establish that there's an act. And I'll go into the element. There's an act.
Okay.
And that act was carried out by certain means. And that means was for a particular purpose. So in human trafficking, we are looking at an act that is done by someone by the use of a particular means and geared towards a particular purpose. And here the purpose we are talking about is exploitation. So this is what is going to govern us. Now, remember I said initially that human trafficking is an international crime. So because of that, there's what we call the Palermo Protocol. That is a protocol against trafficking in persons. So Ghana is a signatory to the Palermo Protocol. What it means is that Ghana has agreed to be part of the Palermo Protocol. So we are bound by that. And as a result of that, we have our Human Trafficking Act 2005, 694, as amended by Act 784. Now, I remember I talked about the act, the means, and the purpose, and I'll take it one. So for us to establish human trafficking, first of all, the act we are looking at is either one, for somebody to recruit another person, or the person to transport another, or a transfer of some other person, or the harboring of somebody, or the trading or receipt of persons for the purpose of exploitation within and across national borders. The recruitment or transportation or transfer, you are harboring, or trading or receipt of persons for purpose of exploitation within and across national borders. What that means is that a person can be trafficked within Ghana, and a person can be trafficked between Ghana and another country. Right, so you may be in Ghana and may have been trafficked.
Okay, so let's take it one after the other. You said recruitment, transporting, harboring. And then what again?
Transfer. Or
right.
Trading or receipt of persons.
Okay, all right. So before any person can be deemed to be trafficking humans, the person must first of all, there should be an act, there's a means, and there's purpose. So if I'm a driver and then somebody employs me to transport human, am I under any obligation to prevent it because I may be presuming that the person is likely to be doing that for human trafficking? Because if I'm just an agent for transporting without that purpose, will I still be caught under the law in terms of transporting?
Okay, so just to get back to it. Now, if you are a driver and you know the person is being transported for the purpose of exploitation, then you, the driver, you become an intermediary under the law. And in the law, intermediaries are also punished the same way as those who do the trafficking. So if you help, you're a bus driver, you were somebody who handles a canoe, or you're an Okada rider, any means by which the person is either transported or transferred, once you facilitate it and you know the person is being taken away for the purpose of exploitation, then you also would be found liable when it comes to this offense.
My concern is
it's quite broad.
Is it actual knowledge where the person tells me that I am transporting this for the purpose of human trafficking, or there is an extrinsic knowledge where I'm presumed to know that because of the situation, this is the likely end to such transportation? Does the law define what that really means, or what is knowledge in law?
Okay,
in terms of the
so great you ask that question. Obviously, for every criminal offense, you must have the intent. So if you do not know that the person is being sent for the purpose of exploitation, then obviously you can be excused. But where it is proven that you knew by virtue of the conversations and by virtue of other things that you have done, for most of these traffickers, they have a course of dealing with people. So they usually will use the same bus, will use the same bus driver, or use the same Okada rider, or use the same means so that they have it easier, because it's like a business. Just like how people form drug cartels, it's the same with human trafficking. People go through the same purpose, or people go through the same people. So once we're able to establish that you knew, then obviously you'll be roped in. But just to continue, now what the law also looks at, apart from the act, we are looking at the means that was used. So one of the means that could be used would be the use of threat, or the use of force, or other forms of coercion. A person could be abducted, or they could use fraudulent means, or they could deceive you, deception, or the abuse of power or exploitation of vulnerability. So either you are threatened, you are forced, or they use other forms of coercion, you are abducted, or they deceive you, or they abuse their power or exploit your vulnerability. So, for example, you are poor. Somebody comes and says, oh, you know that person is rich. That person has a lot of money. The person can take care of you. So because you are vulnerable, the person says, oh, follow me so that I take you to the city and put you to school. The person does not take you to the city and put you in school, but rather engages you in forced labor, or the person engages you and does not pay you any amount of money or push you into prostitution and others like that. In that state, we say the person has abused his power and exploited your vulnerability. In that state also, we say the person has deceived you, because whatever the person told you was going to use you for or was going to engage you in, it's not exactly what the person did. So these are the things that we'll be looking at. Now, the other means is giving and receipt of payments and benefits to achieve consent. So if you give money for me to agree to go with you, or you give some form of payment for my parents to agree to go with you, then you have used that as a means. Remember, as we said, all the act, the means, and the purpose. So these are the means that we are looking at. Now, when it comes to, and probably I would have to define what exploitation is so that we all understand exploitation. Okay. Now, under the law, exploitation is defined. Now, exploitation covers quite a few things. If you look at section 1, subsection 2 of the Human Trafficking Act, 694, exploitation is said shall include at the minimum, and this one is the minimum, induced prostitution and any other form of sexual exploitation, and any other form of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or the removal of organs. So you can see that at the least, the minimum we are talking about prostitution, we are talking about sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery, servitude. Remember, I mentioned all this in relation to the fact that human trafficking is modern day slavery. So if anybody is taken for these purposes or is taken to do any of these acts, then we say that the person is being exploited. Now, let me go on to add, you may be engaged in any of these services and be paid and will still say you have been trafficked. It is because usually the traffickers may give you peanuts. So, for example, somebody is transported from here, or somebody is moved from Ghana to the United Arab Emirates or any other part of the world, and is made to do to become a maid servant, or is made to become a houseboy, or is made to become a cleaner anywhere, and you are not given what you are required to be given. That is the required wage that you are to be given, and you are given peanuts. The person is exploiting you. In that case, we'll say you have been trafficked. So trafficking is not limited to poor people. In fact, rich people can be trafficked. You and I can be trafficked. And the traffickers are very smart in the way they go about it. Within Ghana, mostly the issues of trafficking we have is trafficking of children on the Volta Lake, or taking the children to the Volta Lake to exploit them. So in Ghana, majority of the issues along the Volta Lake is on child trafficking. But there's still sexual exploitation and others within Ghana. People are trafficked from Nigeria to Ghana. People are trafficked within Ghana to be exploited. So basically, that is what human trafficking is about. There are other variants of the agreements and arrangements, which as time goes on, I am going to be touching on, something like bonded placement for service, among others.
Okay, but you mentioned something which was of interest to me. You said that in terms of not giving people their rightful wages due and exploiting them amounts to trafficking. So a typical example, can there be professional exploitation where you work as a professional, as a lawyer, you work in a law firm where you know that as a lawyer you're entitled to this amount, and then as a people you are giving some peanuts? Will we therefore say that that also amounts to professional exploitation or human trafficking, as you just said? That is one angle of it.
In that particular case,
okay.
In that particular case, I wouldn't say there's an issue of trafficking. Remember, I said there must be the act of transporting you, or recruiting you, or transferring, or harboring, or trading with the main aim of exploitation. And what are the means? Deception. So if you were not deceived, then it's a different thing altogether.
Okay.
If force was used, if threat was used, if there was any coercion, if you voluntarily agree to go and do something like that as a professional, and you are being given peanuts, you can choose to leave. However, when I talk about exploitation, I remember I said forced labor or services. So in that particular case, you do not have a choice. You are forced to do the work. And with all the things that I've talked about, it is about being forced to do things against your will, or being subjected to a particular condition that you find it difficult to live. For those who have gone to the United Arab Emirates, they take your passport away.
Yeah.
Yes, so that you cannot leave. So in that case, you are compelled to be working. You are compelled to do whatever you are told to do. Sometimes you are subjected to inhumane conditions. So these are the issues that we are talking about when it comes to trafficking. Obviously, if somebody is exploiting you by not paying you your due, of course, that one, you have the right to leave. But where you are compelled or you are not allowed to leave, you are caged, you are not allowed to go anywhere, then you are looking at issues of trafficking. Once there's the act, means, and the purpose. But for children, you don't need to show that the consent of the children is negated. So if a child agrees to go with you, to go and do any particular work, and you are exploiting that child, the consent of that child will not be counted as a defense. The law does not allow you to use the consent of the child or the consent of the parent as a defense. And it's very interesting to even know that parents who provide their children for purposes of trafficking, they know that their children are going to be exploited, can also be charged with the offense of trafficking. It is that broad. Guardians can also be charged. Once we're able to establish that you knew that the child was going to be exploited and you allowed the child to be sent away to be exploited, or you were receiving payments. Some parents can allow their children to go and work for people on the lake and receive as low as 400 Ghana cedis every year for that child. And the children are not paid. So that's what I'm talking about, trading of persons. So indirectly, the child has been traded. And if such a child is kept there that, well, you're supposed to be working for 5 years, until the 5 years is done, you are not allowed to come back. Then that child is in bonded placement. And there's also what? Placement for service. So you can be sent to be placed at somebody's disposal for his or the services that you may render that you may not be paid for it. So those are some of the things we are looking at.
Okay. And I also hear a number of things in terms of people being transported from, say, the northern region under similar instances where they come to the southern, they come under, say, a certain house controlled by one woman. The woman sends them out to work and then she in turn takes all the money. So where they are not under, there was no purpose for which they were brought, but there are two other factors where there's an act, there's the means, but in terms of the purpose, not to exploit. Should we have all the three elements synchronizing before we say the person is under the human trafficking?
I mean, exploitation is one of the key things to be able to establish whether there's issue of trafficking. So if you do not have the purpose of exploitation as the goal for which the person has been moved or has been taken away, then you cannot establish human trafficking because of the nature of the offense of trafficking. Exploitation is key. Indeed, the amendment to the Human Trafficking Act 2009 was to introduce the word exploitation, which is very key. And even the Palermo Protocol, exploitation is a key thing. Remember, I said that human trafficking is modern day slavery. So exploitation is at the heart of the offense of human trafficking. So without exploitation, we cannot say there's trafficking. We may be looking at other things. Maybe probably you're not paid your due as a worker or something of the sort, or you're subjected to torture and other things. We may look at other criminal offenses, but when it comes to human trafficking, the act and the means and the purpose must suffice.
Okay. So in your experience as the focal point for human trafficking instances, what do you think are some of the causes of these human trafficking?
I think the first thing I'll talk about is ignorance.
Ignorance.
The first thing is ignorance. People do not know the law, that if you do this particular act or you provide your child or you allow somebody to go and be exploited, the person you've committed an offense. So the first thing is ignorance. The other major thing I talk about is poverty. And now poverty is also closely linked with the abuse of vulnerability and abuse of power. Usually, when people are poor, people who have a good means can or are most likely to abuse that vulnerability that they are in. So a lot of people who want to get income, and because of that, they are deceived. They are not able to check whatever they want to do. Then they follow people as they deceive them and bring them. And sometimes I also think it's sheer greed. People want to make something out of others. So people are so greedy, they want to get rich quick, and they want to use others and get rich. So for me, ignorance, poverty linked with vulnerability, people being vulnerable, and 3, greed are the 3 key things that are the main issues which disturb us. Maybe the last thing I'll talk about is the culture. We have a cultural background where parents allow their kids to go to probably their cousins or probably their nephews to go and stay with them and things like that. So there's that cultural element also, which is also a factor that we cannot ignore, where parents allow their children to go and stay with their siblings or stay with their cousins and things like that. And their cousins may be exploiting them. So those are some of the things that I identify to be the root causes of trafficking when it comes to Ghana.
Okay, when I was researching about human trafficking, I came across debt bondage as a type of human trafficking. Do we have such instances in Ghana? And how does that debt bondage become an aspect of human trafficking? Can you throw more light on it?
So great. So debt bondage falls under bonded placement.
Okay.
So what that means is that you owe another person, and you decide that your child goes to work for that person to defray that debt. And until that debt is defrayed, or until that debt is fully paid for, your child does not return to you. In that particular case, the child is being exploited. If you owe a debt, you have to pay the person you owe, not to send your child to go and be working in inhumane conditions for that. Remember, even for children, there are conditions under which they can work. It's not every child who is allowed to work. There are certain works that children are allowed to do. So if you expose a child, that's what we call exploitative child labor. If you expose a child so that his health, safety, and education is affected, you have even committed a criminal offense under the Children's Act. That is exploitative child labor. That is 1. 2, if you engage a child in any hazardous circumstance, a situation where his health, his morals can be corrupted, then you have engaged a child in hazardous labor. And here we are looking at children working on the sea, or children working in mining areas or areas where chemical substances are produced, or working in areas where their morals will be corrupted. If you put a child to be working as a receptionist in a brothel, obviously the morals of such a child will be corrupted. If you put a child to work in a place where people smoke, drug addicts come, obviously the morals of that child will be corrupted. So these are the various things that we are talking about when it comes to even engaging children in work. And the law prohibits certain activities for children to be engaged in when it comes to work.
I mean, practically, I know there are certain cultures in Ghana where they send their kids to the fetish priest in replacement for some kind of debt that they owe the fetish priest. Have you ever been, or have you ever encountered such cases in your line of duty, where kids or children are sent to either the fetish priest or sent to somebody that I owe? I'm bringing my child until my child waits for 5 years. Practically, do you encounter such instances in your line of duty?
So specifically, we've not encountered anything like that. But usually for such cases, the children may probably be confined to a shrine and something of a sort. So for example, we have what we call the Chokosi system in the lower part of the Volta region, which there has been a lot of education on for people to understand. But usually for traffickers, that may not necessarily be the case. The point about traffickers is that they are always making a benefit from the use of the person. If the person they're not going to get any benefit from the person, then obviously they wouldn't be talking about issue of trafficking. So exploitation should be core. So children may be engaged in fishmongering, or people may be engaged in fishing, where they are not paid. People may be engaged in sexual exploitation, as I said, induced prostitution. People may be exposed, even bestiality. I mean, people can bring you in and allow other, even animals, to sleep with you in certain instances. People can bring you in so that you be in a strip club, or you be in a situation where you expose yourself. People come and look at to get pleasure, or even people touch you indecently so that they pay money for whatever they are doing, or people just to see your nakedness and to get money. Or you may even be in a situation of slavery where you are tortured, you are beaten, you are treated less of a human being, and they're only interested in your labor and whatever you can do to make them benefit. In those particular circumstances, obviously we say there's human trafficking.
Okay, so another practical things that I've seen along the road is where either the parents are begging for money with their children, or you can see some of the Somalis sitting somewhere, they'll be sending their kids to beg for money. If such parents are not exploiting the kids, but genuinely they are sending their kids to beg for money for their existence or for their feeding, what does the law also say about that in terms of kids on the street begging for money? Even though you just mentioned that it's one of the things that exposes their kids to hazardous or life-threatening situations.
So I need to say, for begging on the street, it's an offense to beg on the streets. So clearly you come under that.
This is pen and paper printed law, or practically steps are taken to prevent that?
Practically, so the problem we have always had is that we have the law. Sometimes enforcement is quite difficult. Yeah. And it's because people probably also do not know, and people have some form of sympathy, and if you want to step there, people ask, what alternative are you providing for them? So usually that's the problem that we do have. But as I mentioned, for parents who are engaging their children in work, which they are not supposed to be engaging, for example, if you engage them in work that is higher than them, then obviously we are talking about exploitative child labor. So you could be engaging your child in work and be still fall foul of the law, where we talk about exploitative child labor. Or if you engage your child in, let's say, mining, or you put your child in any industry or chemical, where chemicals are produced that will be harmful to the child, or even you operate a hotel and you allow your child to be in that hotel, to be at the front desk, or to be in direct line where their morals are likely to be corrupted, and I'm emphasizing on the morals likely to be corrupted, then obviously we'll be talking about hazardous labor and things like that. So they are related when it comes to some of these offenses.
If I run a hotel and that's my livelihood, how wrong am I to allow my kids assist me in my work that I'm doing?
So you see, the point about it is that there's an age limit for work. That is one. Two, even for children, it's not every kind of work that they can be allowed to be in. So if your children working there is likely to corrupt their morals, then obviously you are offending the law. It may be your own business, it may be your own place, but it does not mean that everything that you do, your children are allowed to do it. For example, if you are a miner, the law does not permit you to put your children into mining. If you're a fisherman, the law does not necessarily permit you. They may be your children, you want to train them, but the law does not necessarily permit you to subject them to the fishing work, because as children, they are very vulnerable. So you may be going to fishing without a life jacket, but if you take your child without a life jacket onto the lake, you are exposing the child to danger. And even our Criminal Offences Act or our criminal laws speak against exposing children to danger. So that is another thing. You may not be found culpable, probably under the labor laws, but the Criminal Offences Act will find you culpable when you expose a child to danger.
Okay. Very precise and then concise. So I also chanced upon another angle of human trafficking, where they talked about organ removal. Is it something that happens in Ghana, and what are some of the means that they use in perpetuating such traffic matters?
So, organ removal is one of the very popular trafficking issues of trafficking, where people will take you to another country, your organ is removed and it is sold. And so at the end of the day, you don't benefit from anything. They take it, they sell, and you will not even know that your organ has been removed. In Ghana, I've not heard of any case directly in Ghana, but it's very possible that people have been trafficked from Ghana to the foreign countries where their organs have been removed. So we always encourage people to be on the lookout. When people come with juicy deals and people come with some of the deals are too good to be true. If anybody comes with something like that, what I would advise is to talk to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Establish that the country that you are going to, there's a Ghana mission over there, and you have close contact with the mission over there. That company ought to be investigated even before you follow them. If not, you are putting yourself at risk.
Okay, so now let's talk about the legalities of human trafficking. What is the maximum jail term if any person is caught engaging him or herself in human trafficking?
So I just want to start from the first point. Now, as I mentioned, if you engage in human trafficking, you can go in for a minimum of 5 years. You can go in for a minimum of 5 years. So under our law, if you look at section 2, subsection 2, it says a person contravenes subsection 1 is liable to summary conviction on imprisonment for a term not less than 5 years. So in human trafficking, there's no option of a fine. What the court says, okay, well, you are guilty, but we'll give you an option of a fine. We'll pay an amount of money for your sins or for whatever you have done. So the minimum is 5 years. And as I mentioned, if you provide your child for purposes of human trafficking, you have also committed an offense. If a child has been trafficked and you use that trafficked child, you have also committed an offense, which offense we call use of a trafficked person. Now, there's this interesting dimension that a lot of us do not know. If you know of a case of human trafficking and you fail to report to the police, you have also committed an offense.
So if, say, human trafficking is going on in my next house or my next door neighbor is engaging in it, and then I fail to report the matter, I'm also guilty. Is that what the law says?
Yes, exactly. And when you notice things like that, you can either report to SHRAJ, the Social Welfare Department, or report to the police. And they are mandated under law to carry out an investigation and to rescue such persons.
So that brings us to the next line of question. If I'm a victim of human trafficking in Ghana, internally, what are the things that I need to do? Because also bear in mind that anybody that does things related to human trafficking acts with other people. So it's in a form of cartel. Am I guaranteed any protection under the law, or that is there an institution that guarantees any protection if I come out to report such matters?
Well, obviously, you're granted protection. So we look at shelters for people like that who are victims of human trafficking. So what we are looking at when it comes to the pillars that we use in dealing with human trafficking, we are looking at one, prevention. We are looking at protection. We are looking at prosecution, and we are looking at partnership. So prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. So first of all, we want to prevent. If you're unable to prevent, when we notice it, we want to protect you, keep you in a shelter, take you away from the trafficker, protect you, and provide a base for you. The next thing is to go after the trafficker and prosecute the trafficker. Then after the prosecution of the trafficker, we are looking at what partnership. So we need various agencies to partner to be able to get all the things we are talking about done, like driver unions, canoe workers, people who work in various means where people are trafficked, Department of Social Welfare, because they'll be in charge of counseling and other things like that. So all these holistic provisions are made in the law to deal or to cater for persons who are victims of trafficking.
All right, we'll continue the next segment, but before then, this program today is sponsored by Enos Travel. We have the CEO of Enos Travel with us. We'll give him 5 to 10 minutes to talk to us about Enos Travel, and then we come to the last segment. We've seen some questions here that Lawyer Adugu will assist us in answering. So Dennis Martin, the floor is yours, 5 to 10 minutes. Talk to us about Enos Travel.
All right, thank you very much, Lawyer. And a very good evening to our viewers today. Lawyer Edward, I'm enjoying the program and I hope by the end, I wouldn't employ people, and then it might look like I'm trafficking them because of the pay that I might offer them. Anyway, Enos Travels, as you see here, have been. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, I can see it.
All right. So Enos Travels, as you see here, have actually been in existence for over 10 years. But then we came into the public about 2 years ago. The 8 years have actually been the number of years that we've used to gather experience. What is unique about Enos Travels is that we mostly offer experiential tours. The experiential tours is in a sense that every tour that we recommend to our clients have already been enjoyed by ourselves. We've traveled to each and every country that we would recommend to our clients. We've actually enjoyed, or we've actually partake in the itinerary that we draw for our clients. So every step of the way we have experience in them. We have successfully taken clients to Europe on a tour. And in 2019, we sent people to France. In France, we went to visit the Eiffel Tower. We were lucky to have 3 couples with us who we knew their vows when we got to the Eiffel Tower. We also went to Italy. In Italy, last year, we went to majority of the historical places, the historical cities in Italy. We went to Rome, we went to the Vatican City, where we were also privileged by the connections that Enos Travels have had to have a mass actually with the Pope himself. And then we were just a few meters away from the Pope. We have videos and pictures to show that evidence. We also went to the most beautiful city in Italy, and arguably one of the most beautiful cities in the world, which is Venice, where the you can compare it to installation in Ghana actually in concept, but not in reality, because Venice is actually bordered by water, and they've structured the city to be one of the most beautiful cities in the world. We also went to Colosseum, which is obviously one of the monumental places in the world. From Italy, we went to Spain. We visited Madrid and Barcelona. And then we went to Budapest, where we also had a very experience there. We have also been able to send clients to the United States of America, and they've been to New York to see a lot of tourist sites in the United States. They've also been to Florida, Miami to see a lot of tourist sites. Now, there are a lot of services that Enos Travels provide. Currently, we have the tourist service. We also have student service, students who want to travel to offer their master's, their doctorate, or their bachelor's degree, either in Europe, in Canada, or the US. Enos Travels doors are open to them. What we can't actually promise the students is scholarship, but then if you want admission, if you want to admitted to one of the best schools in Canada, in the United States, in Europe, contact Enos Travels and we will get you an admission. So if you are also a corporate business and you want to travel to buy some stuff either in China, in Turkey, in Dubai, we can assist you to get you a visa. If you are a couple and you want to go on a honeymoon, we have some special places in Asia. I can mention that of Bali in Thailand. I can mention Sao Tome, which is very close to Ghana in the central part of Africa. We can also mention places like France and Budapest, which Enos Travels have already been there. The service that we've had a lot of clients now is the family reunion service, where people who have had their relatives in Europe for a long time, probably your dad, your brother, or your guardian have been living in Europe for a long time and the person wants you to join them, Enos Travel helps you and assist you in a visa so that you would join your family there. We also organize business trips. We organize business trips, conferences, and all that. So if you are thinking of if you are thinking of traveling to any part of the world, think Enos Travels. You can reach Enos Travels on Facebook. The name on Facebook is Enos Travels. On Instagram, you can reach Enos Travels on eno.travels. On Twitter is Travels Eno. And then I will post our contact. We have our local contact in Ghana. We have our WhatsApp line where you can reach us anywhere you are in the world. We also have a YouTube page where I mostly talk about the easy ways for people to apply visas to any country that they want to go. So, lawyer, thank you very much for this.
Wrap up and then so we can continue.
Yes, if anybody wants to travel any part of the world, you should contact. Thank you very much.
Council, we can continue. I have a couple of questions here which you will assist us answering. The first one asks that, does physical violence have to be involved in human trafficking cases?
Okay, so not necessarily. Now, what I mean by not necessarily is that the most important thing we are looking at is whether there's induced prostitution, there's forced labor, and other things like that. So you may not have physical violence, but in most cases, physical violence is key. Because how do you force somebody to do a work? Of course, there should be some violence. And even if you look at the means, sometimes there's threats, there's abuse of vulnerability and stuff like that. So sometimes you have physical violence. In most cases, you have physical violence. But the absence of physical violence does not negate human trafficking.
Okay, and then the second question asks that, how many trafficking victims are there in Ghana?
I am unable to tell because we are still developing, or we are still working on that. We are still working on that information, and it's a gradual process, and hopefully we'll get that resolved.
And the third question asks that, does human trafficking only occur in illegal underground industries?
No. In fact, human trafficking is all around us. Probably may even be happening next door to you that you may not even know. So it's not. We must demystify human trafficking. It's not necessarily such places like that. It could be happening just close to you. Somebody may be working for some other person and be exploited because the person is not being paid the wages that the person is being paid, because the person was deceived to be working wherever he or she is. Because the person may have been told that, well, you're going to be put in school, or we are going to be put in a vocation, only to realize that you're put in something else.
You've made us understand that if you are a victim of human trafficking in Ghana, you can go to charge or to the police station. What if, say, I'm in Dubai, I'm in Turkey, I'm in the United Arab Emirates? What happens? Where do I go? Where do I
seek? You can contact anybody in Ghana, or you can contact any of the consulates or any of our foreign missions, and they will pick it up from there. Ideally, that's why we are saying that a lot of people do not even know who to go to when there are issues of trafficking. First of all, the police is mandated to do it. And obviously, if it's out of the country, the police here will work with Interpol of that particular country to ensure that those who took you there are brought to book.
Do we always have practical solutions on human trafficking instances? Do we have, once the report is made, are we able to follow it till we get to the prosecution aspect, the partnership, the prevention? Practically, is it possible?
To a large extent, yes, because these matters are serious matters that we are keenly following, we are keenly taking interest. Some time ago, Ghana was on what we call the Trafficking in Persons watch list, meaning that we're not doing so much to deal with issues of trafficking, but we have been able to get off the watch list. And currently, we have what we call the Child Protection Compact between the U.S. government and Ghana, which is a partnership between us and the U.S. to deal with issues of trafficking and things in that light. So to a large extent, we are doing our best, and we also encourage people to report issues of trafficking so that they are dealt with.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I've personally learned a lot today. Initially, I thought that human trafficking was so distant. I didn't know that it was so closer than we thought. And then also, I also didn't know that if something is happening, there was a duty on me to also prevent it or to notify the police and finding the possible resolution to it. Lord Andrews, we are grateful for your time. There's a last question. Does victim always come from low income or poor background, Ghana to be precise?
So that's the same point I mentioned, that the victims do not necessarily come from a low income place. People who can be rich or people who are average income earners are also trafficked. So anybody at all can be trafficked. You just have to be on the lookout, because just like how people can swindle you into get into any business or to do a particular thing, it's the same way persons who think that they are educated or who think that they are average income earners can be trafficked.
And someone is asking, if I want to get to lawyer Andrews, how do I get through to him? Okay.
So my social media handles are there. Andrews Adugu. On Facebook, you can get me Andrews Adugu. On Instagram also, Andrews Adugu. You get me on Instagram. Those are the most common ones. But once you send me a message on Facebook or you send me a request, I should be able to communicate with you. For those who want to contact me, I'll give out my number. You are at liberty to send me a message so that we can communicate from there. My number is 020-8394-315. This number is on WhatsApp. 020-8394-315. I'm going to type that. I'm going to try to type that in the as a message so that those who are online can get that. But I'll try and get that done before the session ends.
Right, I think Dennis typed it 020-839-5315. Is 43 or 53? Is it 43?
020-839-4315.
Yes.
839-4315. Yes.
So, Leandros, we are so much appreciative. We are grateful for your time this evening and for that in-depth knowledge that you've educated us on. I'm sure very soon we'll come back again to another angle of criminal law.
Excuse me,
okay,
I have a question.
Yes, sure.
Please, which can we know the child trafficking hubs in the country, especially in the Volta region? Communities
can you please come again?
that are. I want to know the child trafficking hubs. I mean, the communities that this activities normally prevails in. Can we know the most, especially the ones in the Volta region, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ethelbert Oklu, my very good friend. Now, the point where children are taken from what we have, the records we have, is from Ehi in the Volta region. Now, they are sent all to places dotted around the Volta Lake. So we have Bandu Toko, we have Gemini, we have Ketekrachi, we have Yeji, we have all along dotted around fishing communities along the Volta Lake. There are issues of trafficking there. So they'll bring them from down south. You may even get people being moved from Winneba and being brought around the Volta Lake. So those are areas that we should be looking out for when it comes to trafficking on the Volta Lake. But as I mentioned, they are trafficking in other areas also in Ghana.
So if we've been able to identify these areas, what are the practical steps we are taking to minimize the continuous exploitation of children or any other activity on that stretch?
What I know that there's some community engagement with the chiefs and elders in those communities. That is one. Two, there's been some education, and we'll still need to do a lot more education to get people to know exactly what trafficking is about. Remember, I mentioned there was a cultural element that is very difficult to break, and they will need some more persuasion, some more education to get people to understand that it's a criminal offense.
In resolving such things, do you always have to pay off the debts to the person before he allows you to take the victim away, or you use force, brutal means, legal? What are the
once the person is being arrested, you dare not even ask for any debts that the person owes you. If somebody owes you a debt, you go to court for that. But what we do is not to use force. What is done during the rescue missions is to make the people understand, yes, what you're doing is wrong and you're committing an offense. You're going to be investigated. So, of course, everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. We'll need to find cogent evidence to show that indeed you have committed the acts that we are talking about. In case we do not find you for human trafficking, it's obvious that we are most likely to get you for exploitative child labor or hazardous labor under the Children's Act.
All right, Richard Tete, you can go ahead and ask your question. Richard Tete, you raised your hand. Or if any other person has any question. Adam Kojo, please go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Adam.
Thanks so much for the in-depth presentation. I think trafficking has moved from third to second now in the crime rate, apart from guns. So I guess stakeholders all have to come on board to be able to, one, educate and also try as much as possible to jail the perpetrators. I think my organization is working with the stakeholders in the government sector, the Ministry of Gender, as well as the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit. And last year and this year, they've gotten a lot of convictions. And the government also have 2 shelters now, one for children and one for adults, female victims of trafficking. So I just want to put this information that if anybody has some of these victims, they should refer it to the ministry as well as the Human Trafficking Unit of Ghana Police Service, so that at least we can also take the perpetrators on. I just want to bring one angle. We also have a lot of foreigners also being trafficked to Ghana. The Nigerians, the Ivorians, Togolese, Beninois, most of these also are being trafficked to Ghana for prostitution and other forms of, crime, so that it will not only be sounded as if it's only Ghanaians that are being trafficked either internally or cross-border. So if you also get some of these people, just report to these various quarters. There are hotlines and there are other aspects of which these ministries, as well as the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit of the Ghana Police Service, has also provided. Maybe next session I'll give it out to the organizers so that we also try as much as possible to talk to the stakeholders for us to reduce it to the barest minimum. Lastly, my question is that do the legal organization or legal have any desk officers that also deal with trafficking? Because most of the times individually also want to report the issue to the police, but most of these police, immigration, and other security agencies are part of the cartel of these trafficked victims. But if the legal stakeholders or any legal focal person can also be contacted, so that that particular person can also take the perpetrators on board. That is my question for now. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much for the information that you provided, and I think you were very apt on the non-Ghanaians also being trafficked to Ghana. As to whether the police and others are involved in issues of trafficking, I cannot speak to that fact. But what I can say is that we are doing quite a lot as a country to curb trafficking or to deal with trafficking. Of course, obviously, me as a focal person for prosecution of human trafficking, I've had 1 or 2 cases where people have contacted me and have forwarded their complaints or forwarded their concerns to the right quarters for it to be investigated. If you don't feel safe or you do not think that you do not trust somebody, you can obviously communicate to us. We'll channel to the right quarters to ensure that this is done. We must understand and we must believe in the systems that we have put in place, that the systems work. A lot of the times, a lot of us think that our systems do not work. So that's where we have the problem. So we should begin to believe in the system and to know that the systems work. For which reason, this evening, we are here talking about human trafficking as a subject matter.
I think Ethelbert also raised his hands again. So Ethelbert, you can go ahead and ask the question. Adam Kojo, all right. So, Lawyer Andrews, any last words for us in terms of the way forward for human trafficking and the allied offenses? Any last words for us?
So what I'll say is that human trafficking is real. Human trafficking is happening around us. Let us all come together, join hands to deal with this menace. It could be you, it could be me, it could be your brother, it could be your nephew. We must deal with human trafficking. And whenever anybody comes to us, exposing us, or anybody comes to us trying to introduce us to any good deal outside the country, we should investigate. Speak to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, write to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, send an email to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, check all these things. If your child is being taken anywhere to go and work or to go for a vacation, make sure you follow up to see where the child is and things like that. Human trafficking is real. Human trafficking is an emerging, in fact, it has already been here. Let us do our best to ensure that we nip this in the bud.
Human trafficking is real. Human trafficking is near. Let us do all our best to ensure that this is kept, or if not kept, minimized to the barest minimum. Lawyer, thank you very much for your time, and we are grateful. Thank you very much.
Pleasure's mine.
I like you.
Have a good evening.
I like the painting at the back. How can I get one? Never mind. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.